afternoon, good morning, and good evening. Welcome to our first episode of Seeds of Justice for 2023. My name is Matthew Baird. I'm the director of the Asian Research Institute for Environmental Law, and I'd like to welcome you to our first Seeds of Justice webinar, which is going to be looking at a very new toolkit that was developed in 2022 and launched on Human Rights Day in December 2022. This toolkit was a collaboration between the Asia Pacific Network of Environmental Defenders, the United Nations Environment Programme, the UN Development Programme, the Centre for Environmental Concerns, the Philippines, Earth Rights International, and not one more. It was headed by the Asia Pacific Network for Environmental Defenders. And the toolkit itself is available for download, and we'll provide you with that link. And it's meant to be a sort of an introduction to certain issues relating to environmental and human rights defenders, recognizing that the triple planetary crisis of climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss represent the single greatest human rights challenge and environmental challenge in our era. And one of the things we've noticed that as these challenges are emerging more and more to the front of political and environmental issues, so too are the threats to environmental and human rights defenders who are working to protect our planet and saving to protect the future. So today we're joined by Katinka and Jose Paulo, who are involved, and their organizations were involved in the creation of this amazing toolkit. And so we'll spend the next 30 minutes just looking at the toolkit. And in our second episode, we're going to look more in detail at some of the key provisions of the toolkit, such as environmental risk assessment and some of the mechanisms that are available to help environmental human rights defenders who may feel threatened or may be threatened while carrying out their work. So it's really a vital and important issue to ensure that the enabling environment is there so that people can exercise their rights, and the environmental human rights defenders who are on the forefront, who are the ones that are doing the hard work and risking their lives to ensure that these issues are addressed by governments and also by the courts and the policymakers. So first of all, Katinka, welcome. Great to have you. Do you want to give us a short introduction to yourself and your organization?
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Hi, everyone. My name is Kartika Sari, but you can call me Kartika. I'm from Progress, Palangkaraya Ecological and Human Rights Study. It's a non-profit organization which focus on research, campaign, and advocacy about ecological and human rights. Especially we working at the grassroots with the indigenous people and women and also worker around the palm oil plantation in Central Kalimantan. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you very much, Katika. And Jose Paulo, welcome.
Thank you so much, Matthew. So my name is Jose Paulo, and I am from the Asia Pacific Network of Environment Defenders. And what we do within our network is mainly as a form of capacity building for the members of our network, to link them to opportunities, resources, and of course to help the grassroots organizations within our networks for their campaigns and their advocacies as well. So we work mainly in the IP sector, so indigenous peoples, youth, women, and some think tanks as well, and lots of organization within the Asia and the Pacific as well. So thank you so much for that, Matthew.
Thank you very much indeed, Jose Paulo. And of course, APNED, together with the United Nations Environment Programme, and the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights, have done enormous work also with our Human Rights Forum and our network on human rights defenders. And we also partnered with APNED on a number of webinars that can be seen on our YouTube link, talking about the issues facing environmental and human rights defenders. So I guess in terms of Katika and Jose Paulo, in terms of context, what's sort of some of the context for this toolkit and environment human rights defenders in Asia Pacific? Katika, or Jose Paulo.
All right, sorry. So yeah, actually you mentioned it earlier that currently today we are facing the triple planetary crisis of climate change, pollution and biodiversity loss. So this is the greatest challenge that we're facing today, and it needs lots of action, lots of work to be able to combat, and of course to reverse, hopefully to reverse what is happening today. And a crucial actor in the fight in this crisis is, of course, the land and environmental human rights defenders that have played a crucial, very crucial role in protecting the environment, standing up for communities and individuals who are facing the negative impacts of this crisis as well as environmental harm. So that's why this toolkit was brought about, because of the crisis, the climate crisis, and of course the threats and attacks that they're just increasing for EHRDs.
So, I mean, it seems to me that it is getting harder for land defenders and human rights defenders and Indigenous people. It seems to be more and more difficult for those who are working in this area to sort of be safe and secure. Is that fair to say, Kartika, that it's not getting any easier? It's getting more and more difficult for land defenders and human rights defenders?
Yeah, exactly. Because right now, as we know that the government also, not just government, also with the investor or the company using the military to secure them. So the grassroots people have to face that challenging. So I think this toolkit can help to make it more yeah, it's more easier to understanding, to give them awareness about, to raising their awareness about what's happened now. It's we have to step by step to this struggle, so they are they can learn about what kind of struggle, what kind of campaign that they have to do to solve this problem.
And so there are 5 sort of chapters in the toolkit. So what's the purpose behind the toolkit? I mean, what is it designed to do for environmental and human rights defenders?
So so the structure of the toolkit. So you can find 5 modules there. So the first 2 modules are more in how to build the capacity of grassroots organizations who want to launch environmental campaigns, and of course who want to conduct risk assessments and how to monitor the effectivity of their campaigns. So module 1 is actually called launching environmental campaigns. Module 2 is conducting risk assessments. So that's the first 2 parts of the module. Then the module 3 and 4 is more on how to ensure the physical well-being and security of defenders, as well as how to bring reports and monitoring of the threats and attacks that defenders face. So module 3 is accessing international human rights mechanisms. Module 4 is accessing support for EHRDs. So in those 2 modules, defenders and people can find lots of ways, lots of processes to be able to send reports to international uh, institutions such as the UNEP and the UN as well. And then the last part of the module is module 5, which focuses on the mental and emotional well-being of environmental human rights defenders, and it's called ensuring the psychosocial well-being. And so that's how it's structured, and these modules can be used independently of each other, but it can also be used in a combination of modules depending on one's need or one's needs and context.
So it's designed to sort of be an overall kit for those both starting off in their environmental and human rights campaigning, but also for established groups as well?
Yes, very much so, Matthew.
So, I mean, I'd really love to talk to you about that idea of support and the psychosocial well-being. I mean, it's one of the things that we've often heard about from our guests is that maintaining a healthy outlook, being sort of able to avoid some of the the concern, the stress, the anxiety, the depression seems to be more and more challenging. Often, young people are asked, about those sort of issues. But so maybe at the end I can get your sort of thoughts on that from your perspective in terms of the work that you've been doing. But in terms of the modules themselves, I mean, Katinka, you're obviously already engaged in campaigning on issues such as palm oil. I mean, how do you think that this could assist you in terms of the work that you're doing and your organization is doing? How the toolkit will benefit that existing work?
Yeah. If we look at the toolkit module 1, we will see on the first page about the steps of in launching an environment campaign, and this is like wrapping all of our experience in field in the grassroots for the campaigning. And I think it would be easier that the toolkit are here and made the other can learn about the step for the environmental campaign. Because for example, in my area, we're doing the this step. For example, on the palm oil, if you heard about the haze disaster in 2015 and also 2019, we're doing the issue analysis, which people that impact on this haze disaster, and where is the root cause of this haze disaster? Is it because of the traditional farming from the indigenous people, or this is because of the land clearing from the company? So we're doing the issue analysis, we're doing some planning, not just doing the planning, we also have the social investigation, and then we looking for the hotspot that made the root cause of the haze. And then we saw that it was on the around of the plantation. It's not because of the people. So we made the planning. We not just doing the campaign, but we also doing the humanitarian. So the campaign, we have some step, not just the campaign about this haze, but we also raising the awareness from the community that the haze, it's because of the land clearing from the the company. And actually this is also from the social investigation that we are doing in the grassroots with the community. Maybe with the research.
So the toolkit also focuses on the idea of have effective campaigning, being strategic, focusing on the issue. So, and that was very helpful in terms of the campaign on the haze to identify that it was actually the commercial interests rather than Indigenous people and Indigenous land practices that were causing the harm. And how did then you use that in the work that you were doing, the campaigning you were doing?
We doing the campaign, and not just campaign, we also doing from our research education. Also we organizing, we made the wider of the allies. So we are talking about what campaign that it works. So we're not just doing the campaign, we also doing the citizen lawsuit about the haze. And because we have the documentation, then we are winning uh, the citizen lawsuit. Yeah, it's against the president and then the ministry, that we want. We just to remind them that it should be, the regulation should be like the technical to exhausting the haze, not
Mm.
just not just to exhausting, but also how to strike to the company to not using the land clearing by burning.
And
Yeah,
I mean, certainly in Indonesia, there have been some big wins for community. I mean, there were the big
yeah,
prosecutions and big fines of companies, but also the Jakarta air pollution case that saw the court hold that the government and the governor of Jakarta had an obligation. I guess in terms of for taking those steps against companies, wealthy companies, as well as the government, that brings a lot of risk, doesn't it? And is this
yeah,
then something that you need to include in terms of working out what your strategic objectives are?
yeah. We also analyzes about the risks that might be happen. That's why we make it wide our allies, and we also strengthening the community by raising their awareness about the situation, the direct impact to them, and then so we think that it could be also strengthening the struggle, to strengthening the
Mm.
campaign, because we cannot go by ourselves for this issue, but we have to make it wide, not just in the uh, not just because it's a local, but we have to make it more wide. So we have to ally the networking with the other, not just in the local, but also in national and the international uh, organization to talk
Mm.
about the haze. This is what happened. So everyone
So
have
that
their own part.
right.
Yeah,
So that strengthens the local communities because they're working
yeah,
together with other
yeah,
national and international groups. I mean,
yeah,
Jose Paulo, in terms of APNED, I mean, that is a network of environmental defenders. Have you found that sort of, when you're working on your strategic approach to your issues, that sort of connection is very important to reach out wider to other environmental defenders and land defenders?
yes,
Uh,
it's, yeah. Okay.
Go ahead. So yes, in terms of our work here in AppNet, that's where we start. Actually, when you want to launch campaigns, when you want to raise the issue, first we talk to our fellow network first within our networks so that we can plan, so that we can talk about how we're going to approach this issue, how we're going to move forward. And then when we have discussed and of course have thought of concrete ways and actions to be able to raise awareness, we try to bring it at the international level. And AppNet most uh, recently participated in lots of international events, and that was a good opportunity for the network to, of course, to share what's happening in our organizations, and as well to represent those who are not able to bring their campaigns and their issues to the international level. So re- reaching out to a wider audience, to a bigger audience, is crucial for any campaigns. But again, we have to start first at the local level. We have to know first the issue of what's going on. We have to understand it. We have to consult with them, and then bring it up at a higher level once we have establish the foundation and the trust of as well of the communities involved for the campaigns.
So yeah, obviously working with communities and developing that trust in communities is quite important. Can I ask, do you think it is important having those international connections? I mean, does that help make it safer for environment human rights defenders? Or is it just something that if you have local community support to the work you're doing, that can be enough? I mean, it's how we can, make it safer for land defenders and environmental human rights defenders. Katika,
Yeah. I think if we just go with the local, then it's more dangerous. So yeah, it works. If we have the connection, international networking, then it will be more safer for us because the issue was grow up. The campaign was grow up and more wide, not just being the local issue, but also the in the international. And if there's some threatening or the other intimidation, we also can raising this issue to to help, not to help, but it's more like, yeah, it's to strengthening us from this intimidation, because we know that what we want to do, if there's intimidation, then what we have to do, and we have the networking and also help us if there is like the legal aid or the other organization, international and national level, to campaigning this about this issue.
and intimidation can be so many. I mean, we read about
Yeah.
deaths and people, indigenous and environmental rights defenders being killed, but the threats, the intimidation can be equally as strong and stop people from exercising their rights. So that idea of creating opportunities for people to be aware, and I guess the technology is there that can allow us to communicate internationally. But we have heard that some of the technology can also be used to target activists, because governments and companies can also target activists. Is that something that is addressed in the toolkit as well?
Yeah.
Jose Paulo?
So yes, in one of the toolkits, let me just check again the modules. In sorry, in module 4, accessing support for EHRDs, it's a bit of we talk about on how to get not just of course physical support and emotional support, but as well as creating a base of support in the public. As we all know, we're in the age of social media, technology. It's very easy to spread disinformation, smear campaigns, and that is very evident with the work that defenders do. It's a global trend. If you work to defend the environment, if you work to defend the rights of people, ideally you're supposed to be treated okay. You're doing the good work. You're doing the good fight. You're fighting the good fight. But in reality, because of conflicting interests and opinions, the reverse happens, and where they're treated as terrorists sometimes, and are tagged as anti-development actors. So yeah, in that module in the toolkit, that's where you are we're able to give more information, as well. In the launching of environmental campaigns, there are segments there where um you can build your base of support from the public, because that's where it starts. You have to start from the public to gain their trust and support, aside from the local communities, to be able to mount a strong campaign and to be able to get more, I guess, legitimacy from the work that we do.
So that I mean that in and of is really quite interesting. That idea that by creating, by making sure you're working on a campaign, with the community, for the community, you're actually strengthening and making yourself, in some ways, more secure, because you've got a lot of support, especially if you're going against established corporate actors or governments who have a different potential agenda. I guess one of the questions I have for you both, and in our next episode, we are going to deal with a little bit more on the risk assessment and some of the mechanisms that are available. What is your sort of key messages from this toolkit? What do you want people to take away from the toolkit? Katinka, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think campaign is very important to increasing our issue, and also to being the border of our security, because it's not easy to for the environmental human rights defender, and but not just white campaigns, but also how to strengthening the people in the grassroots is also important to. So these both are very important if we want to struggling for the environmental issue. Yeah, and these toolkits it make everyone, even in the grassroots, more easier to understanding about the step what we want to do to raising the awareness, to raising the issue to solve this problem.
Jose Paulo, what for you are some of the, and for AppNet, are some of the key messages? Sorry, you're still on mute.
Paulo, you still mute?
Sorry about that. So for us in AppNet, we of course we want first to highlight the significant contributions and the sacrifice of fellow defenders that have been, a huge part, a huge motivation and inspiration to have brought about this toolkit, and of course as well as the other organizations that have helped, that was mentioned at the start. And we just want as well to highlight that this is not the final version of this toolkit, because again it was designed as this toolkit was designed in a way that it's supposed to evolve, it's supposed to improve over time, because these modules that you can see in this toolkit right now are just some of the key aspects that that we defenders have found that these are the areas that we need most help in, support in. And then as fellow defenders use this toolkit, apply it in their work, they will for sure see where we can improve the toolkit further, because of different times, changing times, and different contexts as well. And we would like to encourage and hope that more of us can work together to have more impact in our communities and in our line of work. And this resource, this toolkit, is just proof that we can help everyone, and that the efforts from the grassroots communities, then in orgs, then in international institutions, it's a sign that we can all work together and to start something like this to help everyone. And of course we hope to share the good practices of how defenders will use this toolkit, because again this is relatively new. So wait for that. We'll be able to see, let's say in 6 months time, or maybe in a year, and the best practices and how this toolkit can be improved further.
Thank you so much. So I wanted to ask, just in closing, how you personally manage the challenges, the psychosocial challenges of being an environment human rights defender. I've been an environmental lawyer now for 35 years, so I know how difficult it can be just to keep fighting for those issues. But we now know with the triple planetary crisis just how it's getting more and more important, more and more urgent for action. And that obviously means there's greater opportunities for conflict with the business as usual, which cannot continue. So I just, do you want to share with our viewers, how do you manage to keep up and keep the fight every day? Paolo?
Thanks, Matthew. That's a good question. It's a very timely and relevant question. We've seen the past few years that it's been very dangerous to be a defender, and I guess personally, how I handle the struggles and the challenges that our work brings us is, of course, is about having a strong base of support. For me, it's my office mates, it's my friends, my family, and of course, we can't just give them, all of our burdens. We have to be able to shoulder it ourselves. So mindfulness, I guess, and then of course taking the steps, the sure steps to be able to ensure our safety and security. And if any of our viewers there have any beliefs, faith, or religion, I've found that it's helped for me to be able to overcome the challenges so far. Thank you, Matthew.
Thanks. Katinka?
Yeah, we all face this. It's a great question, Matthew. Yeah. I think we have to more aware about our personal information, also about the digital security. We have more attention of that, because past is we not really care about this in digital security, but now it must. And then yeah, I we have to thinking about that, and then uh, strengthening the people from the grassroots and building the networking as wide as we can. Yeah, I think that it could help us to yeah, for this about the issue about the our environmental defender security. Yeah.
Terima kasih. Salamat po. Thank you very much. And
Thank you so
thank you
much.
very much for being with us
Thank
today
you,
and
Matthew.
outlining the toolkit. As I say, please join us for our second episode, where we'll dive a little bit deeper into some of the key issues in terms of risk assessment and some of the mechanisms that are available for environmental human rights defenders. I mean, I have to say, I'm always just so astounded by the commitment and capacity of environmental human rights defenders to keep going against odds in order to put the planet before the profit. And so thank you indeed very much for joining us. I also have to say that one of the things that Ariel is committed to, because of our focus on environmental law, is working with organizations such as Law Asia and other organizations to identify ways that lawyers can also, as a particular group of EHRDs, can ensure that lawyers, both working for environmental defenders, but also in the courtroom, to ensure that those legal rights are able to be enforced. And that's a key issue that we talk to law societies and bar associations in the Pacific and Asia to show that these people who are bringing cases before the courts are doing so in accordance with their legal and human rights. And those have to be respected not only by the courts, but also by other legal practitioners. And that issue of slap suits is one of the core issues that we also have to look at. So again, Katinka, Jose Paulo, thank you so much for joining us. For everyone
Thank
who's
you.
here, given you the link. We'll provide that link to download the toolkit. Please use that, take notes, get back in touch with APNED for further updates, as Jose Paulo has said. And above all, stay strong, stay well, and stay committed to the environment, because it really does matter. Thank you so much. Looking
Thank you
forward
so
to
much.
joining us in the next episode. Bye.
Thank you, Paulo, Matthew. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.